Welcome to another episode of Sounds Reasonable. I'm your host, Dr. Brad, and I'm joined in the production of our weekly show by Tim, Tracy, and our newest member of the SR discussion panel, Abby. We are all members of the Free Thought community, and our Sounds Reasonable website can be found on Facebook. Do you experience frequent irrational thoughts? A pervasive belief in a divine sky daddy, an insatiable urge to read horoscopes, perform spells, speak in tongues, or pray? Fortunately, you are now listening to the cure for these ailments. Sounds Reasonable. This show is dedicated to bringing you, the listener, the latest news in free thought, science, logic and reason, and politics and religion. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us after each episode by posting comments and asking questions on our Facebook page. What is free thought? What does it mean to be a free thinker? The dictionary definition is a person who forms opinions about religion based on reason, independent of tradition, authority, or established belief. Here's Christopher Hitchens' working definition. Our belief is not a belief. Excuse me. Our principles are not a faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on many things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. We will now move on to our science news segment. And remember that the scientific mind is one that allows its perceptions of reality to be constrained by good evidence and good argument. In our last episode, we discussed some recent breakthroughs on our understanding of the aging process based on epigenetics. Today, we're going to continue this discussion, but look at a different process that has been known to be involved with aging for quite some time. Tim has the story. So, Tim, are we going to be immortal soon? Tim, you're muted, Tim.
Yes, I see that. I don't know, Dr. Brad, because there can only be one for the immortals. So. Thanks for that.
I choose me then.
Okay. I can't believe that.
Sorry, guys.
Thanks for the intro. As Dr. Brad mentioned in our last science segment, that he discussed research showing that tissue aging could be reversed in mice. Researchers were able to restore vision in older mice and repair damaged retinal nerves. And they did this by resetting chemical markers on their DNA, thereby reverting their DNA to a younger state. My story this week also involves the reversing of aging and comes to us from The Scientist, written by Hannah Smith, and is titled Human Aging Process, Biological Reversal for the First Time Ever. And that was online published November 19th, 2020. The aging process has been biologically reversed for the first time. How do they do it? By giving humans oxygen therapy in a pressurized chamber. The oxygen-based therapy is believed to affect two key areas that are responsible for us becoming more frail as we grow older. One key area are telomeres, which are protective caps at the ends of chromosomes that shorten over time, causing DNA to become damaged. The second key area is senescence, or senescent cells, which are cells that stop dividing and accumulate with age. They can release inflammatory proteins believed to cause tissue dysfunction and to push neighboring cells into senescence. Animal studies have suggested that destroying senescent cells can slow down age-related physical decline and boost overall health. And many researchers who study aging now regard senescence as a driver of physical decline. a driver of the physical decline characteristic of old age, and a contributor to a range of age-related diseases. Researchers have focused on these two areas in several anti-aging trials, with a number of treatments targeting telomeres and senescent cells. Promising research from scientists at the Tel Aviv University suggests that oxygen may be the solution. By giving pure oxygen to older patients in a highly pressurized chamber, they found that they were able to increase the length of telomeres and reduce the number of senescent cells by 37%, allowing new, healthy cells to regrow in their place. During the trial, a group of 35 adults aged 64 and older were placed individually into hyperbaric chamber, where they breathed 100% oxygen through a mask. The patients spent 90 minutes in the chamber for 5 days a week over the course of 3 months. Each participant provided blood samples before, during, at the end of the treatments, as well as some time after the series of treatments concluded. The researchers then analyzed various immune cells in the blood and compared the results. The findings indicated that the treatments actually reversed the aging process in two of its major aspects. The telomeres at the ends of the chromosomes grew longer instead of shorter, at a rate of 20% to 38% for the different cell types they looked at. And the percentage of senescent cells in the overall cell population was reduced significantly by 11 to 37%, again, depending on the cell type they looked at. The study was led by Professor, and I'm going to obviously butcher this, Suri Ifreti of the Slacker School of Medicine and Segal School of Neuroscience at Tel Aviv University, and founder and director of the Segal Center of Hyperbaric Medicine at the Samir Medical Center. Quote, for many years, our team has been engaged in hyperbaric research and therapy. Treatments based on protocols of exposure to high pressure oxygen at various concentrations inside a pressure chamber, Professor Ifrati explains. Quote, our achievements over the years include the improvement of brain functions damaged by age, stroke, or brain injury. As a result of the treatment, the telomeres were able to grow back to the length they were 25 years ago, essentially demonstrating that it is possible to wind the clock back on parts of the human body. Previous studies have also found that removing senescent cells in animals could extend their life by up to a third, according to the professor. Since telomere shortening is considered the holy grail of the biology of aging, many pharmacological and environmental interventions are being extensively explored in hopes of enabling telomere elongation. The significant improvement of telomere length shown during and after these unique protocols provides the science community with a new foundation of understanding that aging can indeed be targeted and reversed at the basic cellular biological level. It's demonstrated that several health and lifestyle factors, such as smoking, inactivity, vitamin deficiency, and obesity, can speed up the shortening of telomeres. And with many scientists believing that aging is responsible for conditions such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and arthritis, it is possible that this therapy could help prevent some of the illnesses more commonly associated with getting older. Dr. Amir Haddeni, Chief Medical Research Officer at Segal Center for Hyperbaric Medicine and Research, was quoted as saying, with this pioneering study, we have opened the door for further research on the prolonged cellular impact of the therapy to reverse the aging process, end quote. Dr. Haddeni added, after dictating our research to explore its impact on areas of the brain functionality and age-related cognitive decline, we have now uncovered for the first time in humans biological effects at the cellular level in healthy aging adults. The paper was published in the journal Aging on November 18th of 2020. So this appears to be a simple but effective treatment for the significantly reduces the effects of aging on DNA and a number of senescent cells. So you guys, what do you think? What are your thoughts about this promising research?
Sounds good to me.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I'm 45 years old, and the thought of looking older is terrible. I mean, I participated in a silent auction, and I bid on this one thing, and it was worth $500, but I'm using this. I bought, well, I didn't buy it, but I won the auction, and it's a 1 ounce of serum, and it's worth $300. And I've been putting it on my face in the morning and then at bedtime, and I think it might be working, but I mean, once I run out of it, if I do think it's working, I will spend $300 on it. I do not want to look old. I do not want to look old. Like, and the only other option is to die young. And I mean, what am I gonna do, right? Like,
That's what I was gonna say. It's better than the alternative.
I honestly never, ever want to look any older than I look now, ever. It's very important to me that I never look older. So
Tracy, I don't know what to tell you.
I know, right? I don't know what to do. I'm a grandmother. I'm way too pretty and too young to be a grandmother. I know you were thinking it. I just said it out loud.
You're right.
Right? See?
Go ahead, Adam.
I was also curious a little bit about like the cost of something like that. Having like, normal people wouldn't have access to that kind of treatment. So I don't know, I feel like we're also increasing the gap between those who can afford things like that, and are we kind of setting people up with money to look even younger than they already do based on what they already have available to them, and realistically actually prolonging their life, so playing God a little bit, huh?
Well, you could envision that if this pans out, that you would just have, instead of a health center or a gym or workout place on every block, you're going to have a age reversal clinic everywhere, and just come in for your treatment instead of going working out in the gym. Come in for your treatment once a day or every other day, and there you go. A big thriving business right there.
So what is the mechanism here? Is it just like the oxygen itself is literally basically taking or promoting cell growth, or how is that working at the biological level?
Great question.
Okay, I didn't know if maybe it had some more information.
What do you think, Dr. Ed?
That's what I wanted to get back to a little bit, was how this might be working, because to me it seems counterintuitive. Oxygen, of course, is a major source of free radical damage in cells.
Right.
And so, you increase the concentration of oxygen, it seems like we should be causing more damage than we would, reversing a process like aging. I was always under the impression that the difficulty was that you inherently lost material off of the telomeres. Just from basic failure of DNA replication mechanisms to, keep those long repeats at a particular length. And so I'm having a bit of difficulty envisioning how increasing oxygen levels was restoring telomere length. So I wish they would have elaborated a little more on that. How this is actually taking place or expected to be taking place. So
I should have looked. I didn't look at the original paper, or try to find that, and maybe they did in their discussion in that original published article, because and again the added with in a pressurized chamber. So what's the, and again it's one of those things. So and it does work, or if it is working, then where's the chemistry and physics behind why you even thought about doing that? What led them to think, okay, if we subject you to pressure under 100% oxygen, we think it's going to do this. And so
where'd their theory come from? Is that where you're asking? Like,
where their hypothesis?
Yeah, their hypothesis.
But so it's
just another search for a fountain of youth.
Right, and they have found it. It looks like they may have found, I mean, if you could knock 25 years off your life, holy crap!
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather add 25 years.
Oh, that's true. Extend your life.
We don't want to knock off. We want to add on.
Oh.
Yeah, that is true. You want to extend the life.
What it was like starting, like if you were already a younger person, that's also something I'm kind of curious about. How would it affect someone? Because you said the participants were 65 and older in the study. Right. So, how does that affect someone who's younger? If you started younger, would you stay that, a similar looking age for a longer period of time? Would it just like slow the aging process? Because it kind of sounded like you were saying that in the study that it reversed aging a little bit. So I'm curious about how that would influence depending on where you started a process like that.
I think we're looking at the tissue level and cell level, and of course, removing those senescent cells that are then impacting surrounding cells. I think that was the big key there, is that you now remove those cells that are senescent cells that are influencing the cells in that area, and so then you're replacing those with new cells. So obviously that's a big key to it there. So if you're younger, you're not going to have that accumulation of those cells yet, or so I wouldn't see much effect probably on younger people in that respect. Then. Yeah,
my brother actually underwent this treatment, not for the purpose of aging, but because he had an infection, an anaerobic infection, okay. And so putting him in high oxygen environment actually cleared that for him. Right. So I don't know, maybe it might have been serendipity somewhere along the way that somebody noticed, hey, wait a minute, a person that's been treated this way now has telomere length restored. Who knows exactly how that came about. But anyway, Tim, thanks so much for that story, and we'll take our first break. We'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
It's
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable. I'm not sure where our two ladies disappeared to, Tim.
I didn't notice that we lost.
So maybe I'll go ahead with, oh, wait, Tracy's in the waiting room here, so I've met her back.
I was just trying to fix my background, so
Oh,
it didn't
okay.
face, but nope, it still does that. So I'll try again next time.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no worries. Tracy has our next story here, and she's connecting, so should be back here in just a moment. I hope.
Connecting.
Well, why don't I go ahead? I'll go ahead with my story, and then we'll once Tracy's reconnected, we'll get her going.
Okay.
So, guess what my background means?
Let's see. That looks familiar. That site.
Oh, there's Tracy. She's just about back. You're muted, Tracy. Tracy's still muted.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so I'll let you go ahead. So back to Sounds Reasonable here on January 17th, 2021. One of the many great tragedies to follow the legacy of Trump's presidency has been the degradation of science education in this country. We are finally rid of DeVos, so this will help, but the legacy of this destruction will go on for years. A recent bill introduced and passed by the Ohio State legislature will allow students to answer science exam questions incorrectly if they can show it conflicts with their quote unquote deeply held religious beliefs. Tracy has the story, so Tracy, fill us in.
Yes, this is from churchandstate.org in the UK. Ohio passes bill allowing student answers to be scientifically wrong due to religion. I just spilled water all over me. Okay. The Ohio House on Wednesday approved legislation that would protect student rights to religious expression in public schools, including prayer, school assignments, artwork, and clothing. Lawmakers passed House Bill 164 by a vote of 61 to 31 and sent it to the Senate for consideration. Sponsor Rep. Tim Ginter, Republican Salem, said his bill is not an expansion, but a clarification of what students can and cannot do in religious expression. He added that the measure was inclusive legislation that will positively enhance liberties. Critics said the U.S. Constitution and state law already guarantee religious freedom, and school guidelines should be decided by local district officials. Rep. Philip Robinson, Democrat Solon, said the legislation was not needed and would interfere with local control. I appreciate the sentiment, he told colleagues, but we already protect religious expression. The bill, dubbed the Ohio Student Religious Liberties Act of 2019, would require schools to give student religious groups the same access to school facilities for meetings and events as secular groups have, lift bans limiting students' expression of religion to lunch or non-instructional periods, abolish any restrictions on students from engaging in religious expression and completion of homework, artwork, or other assignments. Current state law prohibits a school district from promoting an establishment of religion or prohibiting any student from expressing religious beliefs. Ginter's bill would lift a provision of law allowing schools to limit such activity to non-instructional time. The bill would not change current law allowing schools to provide for a moment of silence each school day for prayer, reflection, or meditation upon a moral, philosophical, or patriotic theme with student participation. During committee hearings on the bill, students spoke of their high school clubs being treated differently from secular groups, such as not being included in the school yearbook and not being given access to facilities for meetings. Aaron Bayer, president of Citizens for Community Value, said the measure comes at a critical time in the culture and protects the rights of Christian and non-Christian students alike to freely exercise their faith. In the Senate on Wednesday, lawmakers unanimously approved House Bill 16, sponsored by Rep. Rick Perales, Republican, Beaver Creek, that would allow active duty, reserve, and National Guard military personnel, along with their spouses and dependents, to qualify for in-state tuition at Ohio universities. Senators also unanimously passed Senate Bill 18, which would prohibit law enforcement and prison officials from using physical restraints on a woman who is pregnant or within 6 weeks after giving birth. The bipartisan bill follows a similar ban in federal prisons signed into law earlier this year. I'm trying to figure out what this has to do with all that other stuff.
I was kind of randomly thrown in there.
Yeah, co-sponsor Nikki Antonio, Democrat Lakewood, said the measure offers imprisoned mothers the dignity, the respect, the consideration, and compassion for them, as well as their health and safety and that of their unborn child. Okay, we don't care about that stuff. We just care about the school and politics. Forget those ladies.
Imprisoned mothers.
Yeah, forget about those pregnant women getting arrested. Don't care
Sounds
about
like
that.
The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if any of you have watched that or are familiar with it, but
I didn't know.
if you haven't watched it, you should. I mean, it's really good. But anyway,
Back to the religion in school. That's what we care about.
exactly. Yeah.
So I read that it's sort of the opposite of what we're normally fighting for. Normally, we're trying to keep religion out of the. Well, I don't even know how to describe that. Never mind.
Okay, Tim, Abby, I'm sure you got some comments on this. So
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and start. The one that, well, there's many things there, but the one that kind of caught me is they're upset because their club, non-school related club, is not included in the high school yearbook or in the school yearbook. Well, yeah, right. You're not a school activity. You're not a sanctioned school activity. And as far as I have ever dealt with or know, that the school yearbook is reserved for activities going on in the school. We don't report on activities that are going on outside the school. So I don't know.
I don't know. When I was in school, I remember there was a picture of a boyfriend of mine pushing a shopping cart.
We'll see.
well, how could you possibly have left that out?
He was at work. We met at that grocery store. That was an important memory I needed. It was in the yearbook.
Yes, it is. You have not forgotten it. Was that his favorite shopping cart?
His name was Dennis.
But
Well, and I guess I don't know about you, Abby, but I guess I would probably be called into the principal's office on every test anytime I had a student then when I would count their answer wrong because their answer was wrong, I could care less, why they picked why they selected not the right answer. So,
Can man walk on water? True or false?
and I don't know how I don't know how you would justify picking a wrong answer and saying, and then finding out later that it was the wrong answer. Oh well, it's because it was going against my religious beliefs. It just wouldn't hold water. So
yeah, I think that's kind of like opening up like a wormhole into the stuff. And there's already, I mean, at least what I've dealt with, there's already not a lot of accountability put on students. So it's just like one more thing to say, oh, it's okay. You can not have any evidence for what you say or how you feel or, the answer to your question. But if you feel that way, then it's right. Like it just seems like we're not pushing for critical thinking here. We're just saying, oh, however you feel, whatever your opinion is, that's okay with me. And I don't, especially in science class, I feel like we really need to say like, no, your answer has to be backed by evidence. So, but I mean, we do struggle. I mean, I know I've struggled with students who are very religious and their parents, especially when it comes to biology and evolution, and, of course, is a big one. And it's just something that my answer is always, that's fine if that's how you believe. But when we're in science class, we need to make sure that our arguments, our claims are based on evidence. And so, I kind of just leave it at that. I don't want to say, I don't want to hurt a student or hurt their personal beliefs. And it's not my place to say that you should change your personal beliefs, but it is my place to say that's not science. And we're going to stick to science in science class. So I think I don't agree with them allowing them to use religious or any other argument to defend something that has no scientific evidence behind.
Yeah, that sounds difficult, but it sounds like you handle it well.
Oh, thanks. It takes some practice, I think. First couple times I was approached, I was like, "What? You're crazy!" But
that's in that unit. I start off with when we discuss, differences between science and faith, and I just give some basic a theological definition for faith and a science definition, for and we kind of discuss it. And I just kind of look at it. I talk about how and I kind of look at it this way: is that no matter how life began, and that can be debated. You can believe however you want to believe, but the evidence, the overwhelming evidence, is that once life began on Earth, it has changed, it has evolved and changed over time. So, and then I kind of just leave it at that. And then that, even though you want to say, well, I know, I'd like to say, but I just don't. I just suggest to not stir the pot as much as it already gets stirred, and then just and I very rarely. I did have last year. I did have an email from a parent that was upset that I was covering that, but not very often, fortunately, I guess. And but again, like you say, you're presenting the data, the evidence that's been backed by the facts, that have backed this evidence and support this conclusion. So.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm just not a fan of the backing by government to say in public education that that's okay, and we see that pretty often. I think, especially, I'll throw this out there, especially with our Republican representatives, throwing that in there that it's it's okay to have religion in politics, it's okay to have religion in public education, it's okay to have, and I think we need to focus more on the fact that there is diversity in people's beliefs or non-beliefs, and those really shouldn't be a part of school. That shouldn't be a part of our public education.
We're supposed to have separation of church and state.
But they keep pushing.
And that needs to be maintained.
We've let that slide for a long time, you know. If you even just look at the putting in God we trust on the money. I mean, you start doing, or you know, when they changed the Pledge of Allegiance to add in, you know, from the original form, I think in the 50s, I believe that was.
Yeah, it was in the 50s. I mean, that was added to counter or to make us to try to establish a stark difference between the United States and the Soviet Union. You know, the godless communists, you know, versus the virtuous capitalists. You know, is literally how that was portrayed, and that's why it was put in there. And an interesting thing, and then we're going to have to leave this and move on. But an interesting thing to consider is how many of those Republicans actually care about this issue, because to me this is simple pandering. You know, this is nothing but simple pandering to a base of Baptists and evangelicals that they need to maintain their standing in the Republican Party. So that would be something. I don't know how you could manage to get a poll or survey done. It'd have to be anonymous because there isn't a single Republican out there that would go on the record not supporting this type of stuff and not face being primaried in the next election. So, Tracy, thanks so very much for that story, and we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels, they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable. Well, how many more times will I need to say this? Everyone say it with me. Religious beliefs have consequences.
Consequences.
The story I'm going to relay today comes from The Atlantic. It was published on January 8th, 2021, and authored by Emma Green, and is titled A Christian Insurrection. Many of those who mobbed the Capitol on January 6th claim to be enacting God's will.
Oh, jeez.
And the name of God was everywhere during Wednesday's insurrection against the American government. The mob carried signs and flags declaring Jesus saves and God, guns, and guts made America. Let's keep all three. Some were participants in the so-called Jericho March, a gathering of Christians to pray, march, fast, and rally for election integrity. After calling After calling on God to save the republic during rallies at state capitals and in DC over the past 2 months, the marchers returned to Washington with flourish. On the National Mall, one man waved the flag of Israel above a sign begging passersby to say yes to Jesus. Shout if you love Jesus, someone yelled, and the crowd cheered. Shout if you love Trump. The crowd cheered louder. The group's name is drawn from the biblical story of Jericho, a city of false gods and corruption, the march's website says. Just as God instructed Joshua to march around Jericho 7 times with priests blowing trumpets, Christians gathered in DC blowing shofars, that is the ram's horn typically used in Jewish worship, to banish the darkness of election fraud and ensure that the walls of corruption crumble. The Jericho March is evidence that Donald Trump has bent elements of American Christianity to his will, and that many Christians have obligingly remade their faith in his image. Defiant masses literally broke down the walls of government, some believing they were marching under Jesus' banner to implement God's will to keep Trump in the White House. The group's co-founders are essentially unknown in the organized Christian world. Robert Weaver, an evangelical Oklahoma insurance salesman, was nominated by Trump to lead the Indian Health Service, but withdrew after the Wall Street Journal reported that he misrepresented his qualifications. Irina Grusow, who is a Catholic, recently worked as a contract communications advisor at the Department of Health and Human Services. Still, they will have far more influence in shaping the reputation of Christianity for the outside world than many denominational giants. They helped they helped stage a stunning effort to circumvent the 2020 election, all in the name of their faith. White evangelicals in particular overwhelmingly supported Trump in 2016 and 2020. Some of these supporters participated in the attack on the Capitol on Wednesday. But many in the country hold all Trump voters responsible, especially those who lent him the moral authority of their faith. This realization has shaken Christian leaders. I certainly did not believe or have any anticipation that Trump would take matters to the extent that have become clear over the last few weeks. Albert Mohler, the head of an influential evangelical seminary in Kentucky, who hopes to be the next president of the Southern Baptist Convention, told me. Mohler opposed Trump in 2016, citing what he saw as the candidate's poor character. But last spring, he publicly declared that he would support Trump in 2020 and vote for Republican presidential candidates for the rest of his life. We are undoubtedly in an agonizing moment in which evangelical Christians who supported Donald Trump now find ourselves in the position of being tremendously embarrassed by this most recent behavior. Oh, well, as long as they're embarrassed. Mohler said he was shocked by the triumph of the mob on Wednesday. He could not believe that the president had explicitly encouraged this attack on the constitutional process. Conservatives do not believe there is any excuse whatsoever for unleashing what amounts to a destructive rage on the nation, he said. I asked him whether evangelicals who supported Trump have an obligation to grapple with their role in enabling Trump's behavior. I honestly don't know the extent to which history will record the evangelicals. I'm trying to think of the word you just used for supporting the president. What was the word you just used? Enabling the president, he said. I've been very clear in my criticism of the president's bad behavior. Surely he didn't vote for this. He couldn't have known that this is how Trump would end things.
No indication.
Up in smoke.
You know, I hate to say that these evangelicals have no clue, but yeah, that's what I'm going to say. But he sees that evangelicals are due for a reckoning in their own house. Where we find ourselves in the wrong, repentance is always called for. Other evangelical leaders who have mostly stayed silent during Trump's time in office finally spoke out on Wednesday. Armed breaching of Capitol security behind a Confederate flag is anarchy, un-American, criminal treason, and domestic terrorism. President Trump must clearly tell his supporters, "We lost, go home now," tweeted Rick Warren, an influential California megachurch pastor. I'm sure you've probably heard of Rick Warren before. But if you haven't, he had a very popular book out a while back that was widely circulated amongst conservatives. But it was too late. Someone else had already grabbed the megaphone. This is bigger than one election, Rousseau says on the Jericho March website. This is about protecting free and fair elections for the future and saving America from tyranny. Paranoid thinking abounded among the protesters in DC. The QAnon conspiracy has circulated within some evangelical circles. And of course, we now have Marjorie Greene, a QAnon supporter who is a newly elected member of the Congress and is prepared to bring impeachment charges against Biden on January 21st. But she gave him a chance, half a day, from 12 noon to 12 midnight on January 20th.
Even after my series on QAnon, they're
I know
still
it.
doing that?
That only goes to show that somehow we've got to get our circulation a little wider.
I know. Our viewers should tell other people about us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to get the word out. So Abby, we're depending on you.
It's all on your shoulders, no pressure.
I forgot to mention that was your new job, bro.
Heavyweight.
was press secretary for Sounds Reasonable.
You're gonna have to dye your hair blonde.
And probably change my name. I'm not sure if Abby is suitable. I need to be
Could be Karen.
Aaron. Okay.
Oh, okay. Let me finish this story.
Go ahead. Carry on.
On Wednesday, the Jericho March account tweeted a screenshot of Trump condemning Vice President Mike Pence for not stopping the certification of the Electoral College votes. A sad day in America, it said, along with prayer hands emojis. The March organizers were not mourning the attack on the Capitol. They were mourning the vice president's refusal to help the president overturn the election. So
to do his job.
We've obviously already had some commentary, but go ahead. Of course, my background today is reflecting the story. So
total chaos.
I think as time's going on here that we're learning more and more that at first it would sound like this is just an impromptu the march on the Capitol. Obviously it appeared to be that it was decided by Trump, but I think as time's going on here a little bit, I think this is a plan. I mean, you have those representatives that were giving guided tours the day before, was it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only way that you could get in was through some of the representative of Congress that you knew.
Right.
Give you in there privately. So we had these private tours going on. I think in my opinion, you're going to see as time goes on, we're going to see that it was an organized thing from the very beginning, and, which is deplorable. And of course, Trump, I think was in on it, and worked them up into a frenzy, saying, I'm going to march right down there with you. And then he runs back to the White House to watch it all happen.
Yeah, and according to our own Senator Ben Sasse, gleefully watched
Right.
and was excited,
Yeah.
was pumped up that all this was going on.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree. I think that as time goes on, we are going to see more evidence that it's organized and planned. And then a new app or website, social media, I think it's called, that a lot of conservatives are flocking to. I feel like that's where we're going to see a lot more of these terroristic acts being planned. I believe for a second that people just like spontaneously did this, and I think it's shameful that Trump is acting like he had no part, that he didn't enable, he didn't promote that exact thing happening. I don't see how people can believe that. It just seems like we're in this alternate universe right now where what people believe is just completely, I can't understand it at all. So we're hoping, I hope we can get back to some reality in the next 4 years, maybe.
Yeah, I'm obviously with you in the hope part, Abby, but I'm I'm not real optimistic that that's going to happen. I'm not sure what it's going to take to restore to put it bluntly, I guess, a view on reality versus view on fantasy. We've allowed literally half the country to slide into simply what they want to believe is now true. And that's a very dangerous way to be, of course. And again, I'm not sure how it's going to end, how we're going to get it changed. I was hoping that the rapidity at which a COVID vaccine was developed, once the scientific community is put on a challenge, that might have some degree of influence. But of course, then you have people trying to convince, and that's something else I don't quite get, but that's a discussion for another day. Why you would have people trying to convince other people not to get a vaccine? If you don't want to take it, don't take it. But why try to convince other people?
Well, what we've got here is a cult that's virtually the size of half our country, and how hard it is to deprogram a small cult even. It's going to be a nightmare.
I think they need to really focus on the domestic terrorists and maybe what it takes the FBI and the Homeland Security and those groups to get together and go after them, like they went after the mob or something like that. The focused concerted effort to put down these especially right wing, and there's I guess you can on the left too, but
it is.
And
Go ahead, Tracy.
And hope to hell that some other country doesn't try to bomb us right now, because I think we're like a sitting duck, man. If somebody wanted to attack us,
I think they just can sit back and watch we destroy ourselves. They don't have to.
Exactly. I mean, a direct attack in the nuclear world just isn't a viable option, for a country. Terrorist cells, yeah, sure. Because there's nowhere to drop a nuclear bomb on a terrorist cell.
Right.
But if a country tried, I mean, they know what they would be facing. It'd be their total annihilation, and ours for that matter. But
yeah.
But there will be no winners in a direct attack against our country by another country.
And it's probably, the deterrent is the global economy. And that would just tank the global economy.
Exactly. That's something else. People are always telling me, well, now China's going to be the new economic leader. Well, guess what? China is absolutely dependent upon us to buy their product.
That's true.
Yeah. So none of that concerns me. It's really
Okay.
the terrorist cells that are going to be very troublesome, and these militia groups.
I
Which I call terrorists. So anyway.
I would like to make a point though that just what we're doing into their reality, and like Tim said, it would take a concerted effort, but if that effort comes from the government, I feel like those people are already so I don't know what the word, suspicious, I guess, of what's going on, and they have all these conspiracy theories. I think that might feed into their theories even more, their conspiracy saying, oh, see, now look, they're trying to shut us down. They're trying to quiet us because we're correct and we're just trying to do what's right. I think they already feel that way, and having pressure from those government agencies, I just see that kind of causing them to bunker down in their beliefs even more and say, oh, see, we're right. That's why they want to shut us down. Because we saw that with Twitter and Facebook as well, whenever they started saying or flagging posts to say, this is false information, and we can't share this, things like that, putting those tags on it. You had a lot of people come back and say, oh, see, they're just trying to keep us from talking. They're trying to keep us from telling the truth. And so, I'm really worried about any type of thing coming from the government trying to shut down what we're having an issue with, this cult, as Tracy, I think is accurate. I think we're going to see a lot of pushback from those conspiracy theories.
Worry about adding fuel to the fire.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But something's got to be done. I mean, and maybe it's, you have to get creative on how you put a stop to these groups. Maybe it doesn't have to be overtly, but covertly, because we can't continue to let it run wild, I guess. So.
But we also don't want to add fuel to the fire.
Yeah, but
inadvertently.
It's to the point that something's got to be done, because look at where we're at.
Yeah, exactly, Tim. I don't know what the answer is. I wish I did. But anyway, we'll obviously continue on these types of discussions throughout this year and probably beyond. So anyway, I think we'll take our last break, and we'll be right back with our crazy story of the week.
I'm feeling so hollow. Don't you know? Don't you know? I'm living in shadow. Don't you know? Don't you know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? You were fool's gold. Yes, I did.
And we're back with our crazy story of the week. Isn't it amazing that Republicans always believe that God is on their side? And I appreciate another little shot of fool's gold there. This continues despite the coup attempt by Trump. And leave it to the right-wing pastor from Nebraska to drive the point home. Abby has our crazy story of the week. So Abby, please tell us all about it.
Yeah, sure. So this is from your friendly atheist. Nebraska preacher, God is mad at Senator Ben Sasse for not backing the coup attempt. This was published on January 4th, 2021. Republican Senator Ben Sasse, for all his myriad flaws, openly said last week that he would not support the attempted coup by his fellow party members to overturn the election results just because Donald Trump lost. Sasse called it a dangerous ploy and admitted there's no evidence justifying the right-wing conspiracy theories. It's a low bar. Republicans shouldn't be praised for doing the bare minimum, but I guess saying votes should be counted and a democracy passes for bravery among the GOP these days. So there you go. It's something. Still, that statement was seen as a surrender by Nebraska preacher Hank Kuhneman of One Voice Ministries, who spent part of his sermon yesterday, this would be the third, denouncing Sasse as a bad Christian. Our state senator here, unfortunately, you're not representing Senator Ben, the state of Nebraska, and the people who love God. You say you're a Christian. Wow. Did you write any of your investigative reporting, sir, that you went and looked at the evidence that they're presenting? Or did you write it because you have a personality conflict with the president? So rather than representing the state of Nebraska, sir, you represent the state of confusion because you're confused and you don't represent me. And I am sorry to say I voted for you. And you don't represent over 70 to 80 million of us in America that know the truth. But more than that, sir, God does. And in the end, you're going to see that God is going to show the truth and you're going to see the error of what you wrote. I'm praying for you. I forgive you. But I don't stand with you, and I'm embarrassed at your decision, sir. None of these damn fools representing the 81 million people who voted for Joe Biden and who know how to count the votes. To be clear, there's no evidence of voter fraud. There's certainly no evidence suggesting enough voting irregularities that would have flipped the election. There's a reason judges have dismissed nearly every legal challenge to the election results. There's just no proof. There's just whining from people whose entire party platform now consists of fictional grievances and faux persecution. Kuhneman may be more worried about self-preservation than anything else. 2 weeks before the election, he said that God spoke to him and promised 3 more successful elections, a second Trump term, and presumably 2 by Mike Pence. Was God wrong? Or does Kuhneman need psychological help? Maybe.
I vote for number 2.
Maybe he's just a grifter.
Number 2.
Kuhneman also claimed in early February that we did not need to fear the virus because God was watching over us. That was 350,000 COVID deaths ago. Maybe his gullible followers should stop taking him seriously.
Oh, wow. That had to be read to be believed.
Yeah, the first time I read it, it just kind of blew my mind thinking that, there are real people that think that Trump was God's plan or whatever that means. I'm not 100% sure as a non-believer, but I just can't grasp that someone feels that way, especially with so many conflicting ideas. Trump is a person, and then the things that very religious people say is important to them. I just never understood that connection.
Well, what it shows you is that they don't care. All they care about is their religious agenda, and they will back the devil to get their religious agenda through Congress, or put out to the nation, because that's what they've done. They backed the devil. They put all their eggs in the devil's basket, because they could care less of how horrible a person he is, but he's going to do stuff to support their agenda, religious agenda, and that's all they care about, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And as someone who I personally have not been a Sasse supporter myself. I'm pretty impressed about how vocal he's been recently about what had happened at the Capitol, because I did not see that coming from him. And if you listen to Ricketts, I mean, he's still completely off the deep end in the other direction. So I got to give him some credit. Not a big supporter, but at least he's being reasonable, I suppose.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I think we're kind of after the insurrection at the Capitol, we're almost seeing like who is crazy and who is reasonable, like who is just gone and who is reasonable. Because some of the people are going, okay, now I'm getting it now, and then some people are just like gone. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
I agree.
I couldn't agree more. That is exactly what these events have done.
it's like the senators who went ahead and voted to object to the numbers, the voting numbers, and the ones who said, okay, no, the numbers were right, it was a fair election. The ones who changed their mind after the insurrection, and then the ones who still thought it was fraud. It's like we know who's just going to be reasonable now, and then we know who are just.
I'm really hoping that Josh Hawley gets recalled, and there's been pretty good momentum for that to happen in Missouri. Kansas City Star, really lambasted him pretty good over a lot of this stuff. And then Ted Cruz, Beto O'Rourke, this is a gift handed right to him. I'm hoping that this will be what he needs to get rid of Ted Cruz next time around. At least I hope he runs against him again. I would assume he's probably going to. Anyway, we'll see what happens.
What's disappointing is that it took almost a coup, a possible coup on the government to get the Republicans to finally say something against Trump.
Yeah, that's it. This is it.
That's the sad thing, is that they should have been calling him on this crap long ago. They saw how he was. They saw what he was doing, and they just let it ride.
I think it goes back to that agenda, though. The people in politics aren't always representing the people they're supposed to be representing, and they have their own agenda, and they have lobbyists that are, funneling money at them to do certain things and pass legislation. And I think, it's a big mistake to have that much money influencing politics to begin with. But a lot of it, I don't even know if the people actually believe those things or actually support Trump, or if it's an agenda-based plan.
They're afraid. They're afraid to say something because they think it's going to knock their base out from under them. And it's, Citizens United, of course, was the most horrible thing that ever happened. And I've always contended that government should support and finance elections, and there should be more strict as far as election laws, as far as contributing. Because you'll ask senators or ask representatives, and how much they have to spend a huge amount of time, or they spend a huge amount of time just fundraising for the next election. And I mean, an exorbitant amount of their time is just focusing on that.
Yeah. And you're doing a lot of butt kissing, I bet, to get that money. So, obviously your heart isn't in the right place if that's what you're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to have to leave it there. So Abby, thanks so very much for that story. So that will wrap us up for this week. If you have enjoyed our program, please pass the word to your friends and associates, believers and non-believers alike. Again, just a reminder that you are welcome to post questions and comments on our Facebook page. Remember, there is a big difference between having good reasons for what one accepts to be true and having bad ones. Incidentally, this is the only distinction one needs to become a strict atheist. This has been Dr. Brad for Abby, Tracy, and Tim saying so long.
Bye.
Bye.